This is the meeting on August 27th. Is it the 27th? Yes, I'm right so far. 2019 of the Agricultural Commission in Newbury, Massachusetts. And we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Matt just walked in.
Hey, you missed the pledge.
No, he didn't. No, I got it.
Oh, you got it? Oh,
I got
okay, fine. All right, yeah. Well, you missed the fact that we're being recorded.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
how are you? So everyone's going to go around the table and say who they are. Those of you sitting over here, you may have to turn around to face the camera. I'm Catherine O'Brien, Chair.
I'm Lisa Colby, the alternate filling in for Bill Colby.
John Newtile.
Eva Jackman, member.
Matthew Kazaki, member.
All right then. So I now call the meeting to order. I'd like to just see if I can put together a little bit of a list of things that we hope to accomplish today so that we can get through everything, okay? So the first thing that we need to do is approve the minutes of the meeting from last week. That's the first thing. The second thing is to deal with the issue brought to our attention by Susan Becker. Susan Becker right over there, and she has the complaint about the rooster. The third thing we had talked about last week that we would like to be able to get to is to augment the bylaw, the right to farm bylaw, so that it addresses the issue of roosters in non-61A areas, which means that the people who are having roosters in an area with a small lot as a pet, which is what they usually are as a pet, will not be given that opportunity. So we'll discuss that. And then the fourth thing I wanted to discuss is what an advisory board actually is, because we are an advisory board. So I have definitions for all of us to go over as to what an advisory board is and is not. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is go over the minutes of the last meeting. And if anyone didn't bring theirs, I'm going to give you one. So if you'd be kind enough to just look it over to refresh your memory from last week. No.
So you don't just pass that?
No, you're all right. Just don't get feisty.
Okay. Keep my hands on top of the table.
All right, so these are the things that we discussed last time. And just to let you know, I was here, Lisa, Eva, and John Newtown were amongst us. And the rooster complaint was discussed. We also discussed the right to farm bylaw as being used by residents to own chickens and roosters in densely populated areas. We discussed why anyone would want a rooster. We discussed the noise problems with the neighbors. We discussed the possibility of avian flu and salmonella, particularly in densely populated areas. We discussed the Constitution of the United States, which guarantees its citizens the right to quiet enjoyment of their land. We discussed how the Constitution probably preempts the Newbury bylaw. We discussed how there's been an ongoing issue in a number of people keeping roosters, and that seems to be increasing. We discussed how the roosters do not provoke noise complaints in more remote private acres, whether they are under 61A or not, whether they qualify for 61A or not. We discussed the right to farm bylaw and the intent for which it was passed. And after doing all that, we had a few recommendations to discuss, and that is limit the rooster population to farms which qualify for 61A status. The farm does not have to be under 61A, it just needs to qualify. Current residents who have not had a noise complaint against them shall be entitled to keep the roosters. Should a complaint arise and it is deemed by the AgCom to be a valid complaint, the resident must remove the rooster within 3 days. We have defined a farm as 61A eligible area whereby the owner earns his or her primary income from the sale of livestock, crops, etc. We did discuss an exemption to that, which would be a person who does not fall into these categories but has a reasonable, valid reason as determined by the AgCom or selectmen to keep a rooster, and shall apply to the AgCom or the selectmen for an exemption before getting the rooster. We adjourned and we'll continue this discussion at the next meeting, which is now. May I have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes.
I would like to change the date, if you don't mind,
Oh,
to the 20th instead of the 13th.
It was, okay, sure, not a
Yeah,
problem.
just that typo.
Change
yeah.
it to the
oh,
20th.
no, it wasn't. No, because we weren't in an official meeting last, the 20th.
That's right, we weren't.
Oh,
So
okay.
leave it as the 14th. Okay,
Or the 13th or the
13th,
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, you wrote it up on the 14th.
I wrote it on the
and we
14th,
ignored
yes. Yeah, because we had the meeting on the 13th and I wrote it on the 14th. So, John has suggested an approval of the meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I guess it passes. So that takes care of the first one. Now, the second one is Susan Becker, and please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions or you want to make a comment. Susan Becker has complained that her neighbor who lives at, Susan, is it 22?
No, I'm 22.
You're 22, okay.
She's,
So Susan,
18.
Susan lives
There's
at
two
22,
huge roosters.
and is it Linda?
Hanson.
Eva?
Yeah.
Linda Hanscom lives at number 18. And Linda has, according to Susan, a rooster that is,
Two huge ones, yeah.
I was gonna say about this too.
there's
yeah.
two.
I have audio
huge-
if you want it too.
Two huge roosters that are creating noise problems with her. Now, I want to just say before we get into this that I've not had any other noise complaints from any other neighbors. But that doesn't mean we're not going to give this complete attention. Okay? So, in addition, Susan has complained that there are a large number of chickens, and their mess is considerably unattractive. So, we've dealt with this issue lots of times before. We've had mixed success. We've actually had quite a bit of success in some respects. So does anyone want to discuss this rather than have me talk all the time? John, what do you think?
It's a noise complaint.
Right.
We've talked about this, and it's turned into, it's no different than somebody having a loud party, somebody going out at 5 o'clock in the morning and shooting their horn, and nobody seems to want to deal with it. That's my opinion. It's just being passed around. We've talked numerous times about why people want roosters. There's one person in town that I know of right now that has roosters and should have roosters. It's Dave Foley over in Byfield. He raises showbirds. He's breeding his own chickens, raising them, and showing them. So he's crossbreeding. He's got a commercial operation basically using it, using roosters. Never had a complaint about him. He's got I don't know how many acres over there, but he's got horses. He's out in the woods, so he's in a pretty good area, so nobody bothers him. He's never had any problem. He's probably got over 100 chickens there total. And he's doing it the way a commercial guy should be doing it, what he wants to do. For egg production, you don't need a rooster. There's no reason to have a rooster other than if you're selling baby chicks, or in my opinion, showing them. I've never told a 4-H kid he wanted to show his birds, and he's raising and hatching his own birds to say you can't have a rooster.
Right.
Because we don't have enough people in farming now to be able to say that. But just as somebody that goes, we talked about Tractor Supply. They sell straight run chickens. Straight run chickens are, you buy 10 chickens, you could get 5 roosters, 5 hens. They shouldn't be allowed to sell them people get them and they feel sorry for the rooster. That's not our problem or your neighbor's problem. It's, well, it is your neighbor's problem, it is, but they're selling them that way there. They don't need those roosters. You can buy plenty of chickens. Matt, you buy all your chickens. How many roosters you have? Other than one or two that sneak in?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're, raising, even if you were raising broilers for meat, it's not worth it to hatch your own birds, to go through it. You're better off buying them as their own chicks. On that and that.
so under the rules, this isn't ag anyway, is it?
No, it's really not, but we always end up with the rooster problem because people have tried the police, the Board of Health, they've tried everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finally end up calling us because somebody tells them.
They start with us and end with us.
Well,
When
yeah,
it
it's-
never, we tell them
What
this.
I've tried them all.
What I mean by that is like, it doesn't fall under the ag right to farm.
No,
This is
no.
not-
And that's
this is
what
not.
needs
So I
to
mean,
be-
I'm not sure why everybody's passing the buck.
Well, that's what, John Short, remember John Short, he used to be our mailman on High Road, he used to go down, John Short.
Yeah.
He lives over in Byfield, his son was showing birds at Topsfield Fair, had a couple roosters, had a neighbor complain. Went through the police, this was before the ag con.
right.
Went through every department in the town, finally, I don't know if it was the police said, we can't do anything about it, take legal action, go to a court magistrate over in the district court, and that's where it ended up, and it becomes a noise complaint. It's, it's one of those things, it's,
That's what I was told, to go to court.
right, that's,
That's what they do.
I heard you guys could settle it.
well,
Well, we're just an advisory, we don't have power to make law or enforce it.
our biggest problem.
But she doesn't fall under the guidelines, so they need to go in 3 days, right?
Right, and we
No, wait, no matter what we decide now, we can't say when Catherine Wright goes, everybody's grandfathered for what they have within this town. And this is another thing I've had since I moved into the town. When I first bought into the town 43 years ago, I lived in an AR district, agricultural residential. About 10, 15 years ago, somebody in this town got the bright idea to change it to RA. We are now residential agricultural. And it just kind of switched it over to say, we could say roosters are not allowed in town. They gotta pass it before the board, go before a town meeting. And then it gets to a point of is if we start outlawing one animal, it could snowball for an agricultural town. So that's what we're looking at is to say, what can we do about it? All we can do really is prevent further roosters. We can't stop us ourselves, and I don't even think the selectmen could take where Linda has had a rooster and she's grandfathered under the current, it's not even the right to farm bylaws, it's the agricultural residential or residential agricultural for the town of Newbury says we can have farm animals, we're a residential agricultural animal. That's where it becomes a noise complaint. What we're looking at now is how can we prevent this in the future from stalking? Because right now, like we've talked about it, we can't make a law that says roosters are illegal. I don't think the selectmen would even get into that because it
all we can do is try to change that bylaw's wording
to say,
to discourage people,
discourage,
get permission from the neighbors, and,
or
and
just, yeah,
you don't want the selectmen involved.
right, well, yeah. But that's where we get to if we have to try to outlaw something.
So I have to go to court.
No, hopefully not that.
Right, it's more of, it's trying to get somebody to complain about it as a noise, to take it on
I've
as a.
called multiple times.
The
I've talked
police
to the
don't-
selectmen,
Yep, they
I've talked
don't,
to the Board of Health, I run around everywhere.
yeah.
I'm out of my mind. If you want to hear the audio, I mean, it's
Oh,
not
no,
pretty.
right?
No,
I
I know
think
what
we
they
need to
do.
start with her, and hopefully she can keep the thing in longer, or.
It doesn't
That's
work.
not gonna work with
They don't
her.
come-
Same thing with her dog.
Right, yeah,
Well,
it's a tough situation.
Because she was mentioned, there was a complaint by somebody a couple weeks, a month ago, and we heard nothing all weekend. But now they're
Yes,
in
these
full
others-
force right now. Yeah, but if you tell her to she won't do it, because her dog killed another dog and bit 2 mailmen, and the selectmen did nothing.
Yeah.
He's still running around over.
So how did they quiet him?
Put them in, there's one on Graham Ave, they put it in the house.
But she will never do that. 5:15 in the morning, Mike Doyle heard it the other morning when he was walking his dog. She won't abide by that, she's very defiant. They either gotta go, or that's the only option.
Well, I don't know how that's.
Because you would hear it right through a house, wouldn't you? If it was in a house. I mean, you
Hear it through the
it
little
wouldn't go
roof
as
at
far.
5:15 in the morning.
Yeah, it wouldn't go as far, but it's.
Right.
It's still you hear.
Yeah, there's a woman on Graham Ave that has one, and she keeps it in her cellar, I think, in the morning until 8 o'clock, and then we hear it every now and then from 8 o'clock until.
This isn't every now and then.
Do you, didn't you say they have a caller?
They
make
do.
calls?
Yes,
Is
yes.
she not interested in the caller?
We
haven't talked to her yet.
No.
haven't talked to her yet, but
Yeah.
the point is, we did settle that one complaint from the neighbor to another neighbor that had multiple roosters. But she had a business license and she was breeding them and so forth. But to be, to try to be conciliatory, we asked the rooster person, the owner of the rooster, if she would get one of those collars to put on the rooster. And it doesn't silence them completely, but it does muffle them. They can't quite get up enough to speed because I guess they can't lift their head up high enough.
It's something, yeah.
Yeah, it just sort of goes in the vocal cords. But I will tell you that, pardon me?
They're that tall, they're huge.
Yeah.
So what you said to me a while ago about when we first spoke email, they're not allowed in residential areas as pets. So what's the?
We're not a resident, there's no per se strict residential area in the town of Newbury.
Okay.
We're agricultural, I always go agricultural residential, they go R right now. I think there's Seaview Lane put in, because that was a development.
Yeah.
Is it Seaview behind the town barn?
Oh, no. Oh,
Yes.
Pine.
No,
The other one, it's Seaview, yes.
Seaview, they did, when they built the 12 or 15, 20 houses, they did a covenant. So there's certain regulations
Right.
that they can't have certain animals there that they did.
Right.
But right now, the town of Newbury, going back forever, has said that where we're residential agricultural, you can have farm animals.
But what you stated in the minutes that you read a little while ago from the last meeting, certain acreage,
We're just talking
not
about.
25 feet from someone's window.
Right, we're just talking about is if we put in something to say, how can we curb people from having a rooster? This was just discussed,
Okay.
is saying that you have to qualify as a farm. And one of the things is a farm is 61A is where you get a tax break on your land, and it shows that your land is the primarily used for farming. The other one, which I'd like to possibly add to that, is this is a definition that it has to have a town business license and be commercial.
Yeah,
Because you could still have
yep, that's true.
land that's under 61A, or it could qualify it if you were farming it. Just because you have 100 acres, you're not farming it, it's not qualified for 61A, because you're not using the primary hay or whatever off of it. But it could qualify it as, I'd rather see it as adding that you have to have a town business license and be a commercial operation.
For a rooster?
To have a rooster, if you want to have.
Not hens?
No, hens, anybody can have hens in Newburyport, you can have either 3 or 6 chickens.
Those hens are pretty loud too.
Right, yeah, I mean, you can put up with the hens laying an egg for an hour or
I can
two.
put up with 100 hens, but I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah, with the rooster,
Especially 2 of them.
They go back and forth.
yeah. Yeah, go to the Topsfield Fair, they're having the rooster crowing competition.
I think these two could win.
Yeah,
Training area.
Oh,
and like I said, that would just be a suggestion, and we don't even know enough that we've talked about this is, when we make a suggestion, is if they can just implement it, or if you get into trying to ban something, then it has to go to a town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
this
just make
is-
suggestions.
Yeah, and I don't even think the suggestion, the selectmen are gonna wanna get into. I know Damon Jefferson has talked about that maybe we should ban roosters.
I've talked to him too.
Yeah. It's really, you know, I've said this directly to Linda. I go, you don't need the roosters, it's a noise complaint. And that's what it is, until you can get somebody that will understand that it is a noise complaint. Has nothing to do, it's no different than a dog barking at 5 o'clock in the morning. Or you going out tooting your horn at 5 o'clock in the morning, or playing your trumpet at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's,
So really, if we're strictly talking noise,
right,
who would that be?
the police, you call the police. If you have a party next door to you that's keeping you awake late at night, or somebody
They
gets...
do nothing. One of my
Oh, yeah.
neighbors called 4 times in a row and nobody ever came.
No. And Carol LaRock is the animal control, doesn't like to do farm
She
animals.
won't come for that.
Nope, and, you know, she won't do that. She has a hard enough time dealing to prove a dog's barking. And I'm trying to think of what the term is excessively or excessively, that's in with a dog barking.
Has to be nonstop.
Yeah, should say if it takes me 10 minutes to get to there by my house, it's still barking. I sit there for 10 minutes, it's still barking. That's excessively.
We've done that too.
Yeah, and, you know, so it's a tough one. It really is a tough one for, you know, a noise complaint. And there's been different towns around here that have taken different animals and totally eliminated them. I think Havel was working on pigs.
Yeah,
Wasn't that with the golf course they were trying to do about 8-10 years ago? There was a golf
Yes.
course going in and they were trying to eliminate pigs.
People
Renaissance.
just want to eliminate pigs.
They did
Yeah.
do it, yeah.
Abram?
It was the Renaissance Golf Course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it gets to, it takes it away from a farming community to say, okay, we're gonna eliminate roosters. And there may only be one person in the next 20 years that wants to have a rooster. But once you start eliminating one farm animal, could it snowball to somebody raising geese? Geese can be noisy. Somebody raising, you know,
Guinea hens.
yeah, guinea hens can be, you know, noisy.
Well, how about the fact that rather than have a rooster as an agricultural component of the house, of the business, or whatever, it's just a pet? Doesn't
That's-
the animal control officer
That's
have
what I would say,
control
yeah.
over
Yeah,
pets?
it's not an it's not,
Yeah, what do they do, like a dog, just continuously barking, don't they?
they call Carol.
Carol helped with her with that.
Yeah, with the barking on the dog. The dog's supposed to
Basically
be,
the same thing, I
It
mean,
is the
basically
same
the same
thing.
thing.
She doesn't come though for the roosters.
No.
I just, so
They
you guys
pass-
can't send a letter, nothing.
I hate to say it, but it's been one of the things that's been passed around forever.
It has,
Yeah.
yes.
And I mean years, this is, you know,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they instituted this bylaw because nobody else wanted to deal with it.
right, yeah, that's it there.
So,
And if we have a right to farm bylaw that says noise, odor, and dust are normal operations of a farm.
now, the drawback of the right to farm bylaw is it doesn't define what's a farm.
Farm, right,
It doesn't say, I mean, like, if you look at a farm, you know it's a farm, but it should have some kind of qualifier.
right,
And that's why we talked about last week about making it, if someone qualifies for 61A, they don't have to put it in 61A, but if they.
have a farm business license, that's what I wanna ask.
Yeah.
You're commercial, you're saying, okay, I'm selling my chicks, I'm claiming that I'm selling my baby chicks.
Mhm,
You've got a poultry operation.
mhm.
And that's, you know, that's a tough one. If if he's got 100 roosters and that's still growing, then it becomes like anything else. My big one is with laws, there's enough laws out here already that should handle every situation we have. Whether you're not feeding your horses, the MSPCA comes in.
Right.
You're not cleaning your barn, you stinks, the Board of Health will come in. You're making too much noise, the police should come in. We already have regulations. Whether everybody's doing their job, that's where we're at on it.
Can she be notified that that she doesn't fall under that common criteria with the business license and the commercial operation?
If we ever get this passed, she's grandfathered.
Right.
Yep,
So
there's,
why are we?
Well, she doesn't,
that's, we have to try to help the selectmen, because you've talked with the selectmen. They don't know where to go with it. That's what we're here for, is just to try to help them, because they know nothing about farming.
Okay.
90% of the people don't know that you don't need a rooster to have eggs. I need a buck, have to breed my goats. Same with Matt. Oh, well, Matt doesn't have any milking cows, but if you want milk from a cow, milk from a goat, you have to breed it. You have to either AI it or have a buck.
This is just an annoying pet situation.
Right, that's exactly what it is. It's an annoying pet.
more like a dog.
Yep, it's, and
Oh, I'd rather have a dog.
Yeah.
This is all.
No, but I mean
the same situation. So there's no reason she needs to have a rooster. There's just no reason for a person, even if she was selling commercially 100 dozen eggs a week, she does not need a rooster to produce those eggs. And that's what we've talked about, and that's why the selectmen have no idea on this. So that's why we're trying to, inform them that, you don't really need a rooster. Whether she falls under the right to farm bylaw, that's here and there. It's more under, she's agricultural residential. She could have rabbits there, she could have chickens there, she could put a pony in there, or stick a horse in there, until it gets to the point of she's doing something either with the health department or with the MSPCA and not taking care of it, she could have a pony there, or have a horse there, put a stall there. She's got a double lot. You can't really stop them in the town. So that's why we're looking at it, it's a noise complaint.
Do you think, I'd like to hear from Lisa, frankly, would you be interested in weighing on this?
Can we make a recommendation? Can we at least come up with some kind of recommendation as a board and pass it on and hope that someone, whether it's the selectmen or the police
Yeah.
department or, I mean,
I'd like to make a recommendation that first we have to deal with this complaint, because whatever recommendation we make, hopefully to put something in that bylaw to kind of single out people that are not under a 61A, we have to deal with Rita and Sue.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing. They've been waiting weeks on.
Right.
And I think we have to give her a fair shake. She's already proven she can quiet them.
She's not gonna do it. They
Yeah.
don't,
Well, that's just it. 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah.
Selectmen did that
And
with
you
the
can't
dog.
just
It
tell
didn't
her
work.
Yeah.
to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Or use a caller, and if she can't comply, then they got to go.
She won't. They tried that with the dog.
Yeah.
It was quarantined. Nobody ever killed another dog.
Well, I don't think, we can't make the decision to tell her just get rid of them.
You can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
We gotta give her a fair,
I'll just go to district court because this is gonna get taken care of. I can't keep going.
Do you know John Short?
Yeah.
His wife, Laura? Is she still, did she retire?
she
Did
retired.
she
Oh,
come
she
over,
would-
did she come over and get them?
Oh, no. But ask see, they had it taken against them, so you gotta be careful.
Okay,
They were the ones that were being complained against.
okay.
So if I remember, and I think it was John Lucy. Is he deputy chief now?
I think so.
Yeah, I know he was involved, I think, and they just basically said, you're gonna take it to a court magistrate and have a hearing over there as a noise complaint. And then what we're gonna try to do is try to stop this from happening again.
are there any zoning notes from when that park went in? What was it, 1895 or something?
97, I got the map on that. No, we were all, yeah, it was all
So there
part,
was no,
No,
was
it
it
used
just a
to-
zoning issue, I mean,
no, there was a big farm down behind. Before it was a dump, there was a big farm down where the fire station was.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then it was the dump, my whole backyard was,
I wouldn't even know how to find the note, even if there was.
yeah, yeah.
And there's a Board of Health issue, you mentioned about the salmonella and the other thing.
Avian flu?
When she mows the grass over there, all that crap flies, I can't hang clothes out in the line, it's gross.
That's terrible.
It shouldn't happen in a little tiny lot like that.
And that's where I say is, there are regulations, it's just getting people to enforce them.
Well, you know, I like Lisa's suggestion that we write something now that would impact Susan's situation, and we could, if we're clever, we could also threshold it into future use. And I'm thinking that the recommendation would have to go to the selectmen. And it would have to be based upon our meeting, our inability to really rectify the situation. We're just a commission, we're not a committee, and we don't have that authority. And we've come up with a lot of good ideas, but it's not up to us to institute them. And to let the selectmen know what their choices are, and let them decide who's going to deal with this, because it does have to be dealt with. And, you know, there are, just like you said, John, we could go through and list what the issues are. Noise complaint, health complaint, animal complaint. All three of those boards actually have the authority to do something where we don't.
Yeah.
And maybe if we could make that clear to them, then it would be on the selectmen to really look at our recommendation, because that's what we do.
I think that would be great for this situation.
Yes, I think so
We're
too.
taking on, looking at Sue's complaint.
Yep,
We've done the best we can to say, we've gone over everything. It's
Yeah.
a noise complaint. And then there could be other issues that, you know, if that's what
or
it
an
falls.
animal complaint,
Yep,
or
or
a
an,
health complaint.
yep,
But it would be the Board of Selectmen that would decide which one of those three
enforcement
divisions-
agency.
Yes, enforcement agencies would be responsible for settling this.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's 3?
Well, there's the animal control,
That'd be a noise, wouldn't
there'd be the noise.
Police,
Yeah.
and then Board of Health,
Board
if
of
there's,
Health. Well, the
it? I thought it
animal,
was 2, like Board of Health and noise.
Yeah.
well, the only reason that I suggested the animal control is because they're being kept as pets.
So pets would fall under,
animal control, yeah.
Well, it's still noise, yes, absolutely.
I'm just saying, you know, the more you put out there, the harder it is to decide which one to pick.
Well,
And animal control,
That's
is
true.
she considered police?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a
So-
police, she's a
Yeah,
police
yeah,
person.
she's a special
Yeah.
officer.
So it doesn't fall under the agricultural protection.
No,
No.
No,
it does
That,
not.
they can take that off.
right. That would be another thing, is to start it off as it does not fall, we feel that after discussing this, it does not fall underneath the agricultural
The
commission.
guidelines of the state
Yeah,
for agriculture,
That's right.
yeah,
because we don't make the rules.
No, you just quote Mass General Law. We've already moved
So
that
it's
out.
not under that.
So what we would suggest at the next meeting of the selectmen would be that we've discussed everything, since we have no authorization to make any decisions.
It's not used for agricultural production.
No, that's right, it's not.
And it falls under, like a dog, a pet.
yeah.
Yeah,
What are the rules that? We don't have the rules of
Yeah.
that. What are the rules of pets?
good question.
That's
So,
not for us, wherever that goes, that's for them to decide.
You know, it's sad that the concern for your neighbor and the courtesy
Oh.
Oh,
doesn't
everything's
exist.
going,
Oh,
And
it's so true.
And that's what I think needs to be put in that bylaw.
yeah,
There has to be something in there that makes the person who wants that animal responsible, that they need to gather signatures
Yeah.
from the neighbors. Even if it's not binding in the end, they've talked to each neighbor.
Yeah.
And that would keep a lot of this out of the,
I don't know if it would.
No, true.
well, and if they couldn't, and then the neighbor might decide they might like it, and then they decide they don't like it. So that signature's not gonna be worth anything, but still, it would.
It just has to be defined under the law, like if it's a pet, it's a pet, and it falls under that law, what do they do? When the dog's barking, what do you do?
That's right. It
Yeah.
is a pet,
Right.
obviously, it's a pet. And it's a noisy pet.
So what do they do for noisy dogs?
What do they do for that? Do they do anything for
Oh,
dogs?
yeah.
Carol helped with that.
Yeah.
It's still all day long.
Is
I don't drive down the street anymore, it doesn't like my truck.
I have no choice.
It's
I
native.
get,
Yeah,
I get chased every
Native.
time I leave the
What?
driveway.
Oh, yeah, it's right around the corner from me. Yeah, they had the roof.
Right across where you, from where you used to
Oh,
live.
yeah. Were you in,
Oh, up there?
yeah, right across the street almost.
That chain link.
So it would be up to the selectmen to determine which one of these three would be the lead person. And again, it might be the police because Carol's under the police, and Board of Health would be, someone, a board that should take a recommendation from the police department regarding safety issues. And then let the selectmen decide what the consequences are gonna be to that person. Because it's like right now, there are no consequences. And that's why if we make our recommendations, it's if the people will agree to it. Like we made the recommendation with the collars. The person with the roosters agreed to the collars. She was very good, she went out, she bought them, she even put little hook and eyes in them because they kept falling off with the Velcro. And the neighbors were not thrilled because you could still hear them, but they were at least ameliorated.
And she made an effort.
She
was
Right, that's
amazing.
the right one right there.
Exactly.
She did.
That's the
That's
one
Somebody
right
do
there.
it.
She
Never
did.
know.
But if she didn't make an effort, there's not a lot more we could have done.
Yeah.
It was just talking to her nicely and just saying, we understand how you feel, and perhaps you could understand how the neighbor feels.
And I know when we were involved with that, we thought that was gonna get into a lawsuit.
Oh, we did.
So we don't know if she might have got wind of that, the person with the roosters got wind of that and said, well, I better smarten up and do this. Or it could turn into a lawsuit. And I don't mean a lawsuit where you could sue somebody, but it's just the legalities of paying for a lawyer, going through all of this, and, yeah.
I really do believe, and I'm not giving myself credit for this, but I believe it's because I went from one to the next, to the next, to the next, back and forth, and gave them a lot of attention, and kept pushing the idea of being a good neighbor. That really is, let's face it, it's not the animals, it's the neighbors.
Oh,
So it's, the poor rooster's only doing what it's supposed to
Supposed
do.
That's right.
yeah.
So, how are you gonna regulate the neighbors? So, that's not something we can do, but, by the same token, we can perhaps make a more clear path as to what happens when there's that kind of a complaint.
And even, we've looked at is even, the person we're talking about is down on the corner of
High and
Plummer.
Plummer.
And she's selling some baby, I see her on Craigslist every now and then, she sells baby chickens that she hatches all herself. I don't think it's her primary business in the amount of money she makes, that if the complaints were that bad in this police and things like that, I think it get to a point that even if we make a recommendation, or they have a law in town saying you could have one as a 61A or a farm, you still step on the noise complaint, that it's gonna overrule it. If you have a noise complaint, if your farm made so much noise every day that nobody could live in the neighborhood, something would have to be done to it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Occasionally, and that's what our right to farm bylaw says, you're not gonna get odors every day, you're not gonna get noise every day, you're not gonna get dust every day, but we do produce it in the farming thing, in the farming community. So we gotta not be careful, but we wanna try to prevent this from happening again, because it's happening a lot with people getting roosters, is how can we try to curb it,
And
from happening.
at the same time, try to get Susan some relief.
Right, and I think that is just saying, there's nothing we can even suggest other than she doesn't need it. Yeah,
That's
whether
right.
she's a commercial operation or not, she does not need the rooster.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's just, really meanness
yeah,
to keep it.
yeah.
And so, Now,
animal lovers, and like I said, that goes back to Tractor Supply selling straight run.
right,
Or,
I
right.
mean, can she take them to the vet? They can take them.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, if she likes it as a pet?
I don't know, I've
You
never.
know,
And
she
if
likes to annoy people with
No,
it.
that's,
Well, I'm just saying,
Dawn knows
if she
her.
likes them,
John knows her.
they do that thing,
No,
and it would,
she would never do it.
I don't know if that's, I've never heard of that.
That's cool.
Do it aggressive.
What?
It isn't.
I offered to give a collar to the dog.
I mean, I don't know if they do it or not,
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
saying,
Well-
you know, the other option is the rooster gone.
Yeah,
Well, maybe we give anyone, whether it's Linda or not, options. Your first option is the band.
They're doing all kind of work with chickens in the vet places now anyway,
yeah,
Yeah.
repairing them.
yeah.
I don't know.
I know one of the
Look
things
into-
is
That's a
somebody
different-
would
that's a
step in
different kind
and
of
they're
vet.
starting to outlaw declawing the cats.
Kevorkian.
Yeah.
Yep, they started outlawing.
I don't know.
Yep, they're starting to pass a law that you can't have your cats declawed anymore. So you'd probably get somebody that says,
Yeah.
sooner or later, yeah, it's a rooster, you can't, you know, a lot of people don't like, having a dog debarked, because I know you can do it to a dog. You can-
Yes,
Yep, and people
yes.
think that's cruel. You know, so it's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
You seem to have some influence on her, though, I don't know if.
She hasn't been over the house much lately, because the last time I told her, I basically said, is this, you don't need to make this, you're just doing it,
Aggravating.
and then,
She wants some eggs, have some chickens, I guess.
She seems to listen to you if you say something, because
yeah.
they stopped for a day or two. I thought they were gone, I was.
Right,
I had
because
some
she
balloons.
stopped for a day or two, you can't stop them every day.
Oh, it's awful.
No, Grand Map does, that's
When
the
do
other
they
problem.
start? Like,
5:15?
Yeah, as soon as this.
I was I'm gonna guess it didn't start early.
You know, there's a full moon, right, 3 o'clock, there.
Her shed, I've been in her shed.
I
Her-
loved it, I didn't even, 11 o'clock.
Her chicken coop isn't really a lot of windows and things like that, so it may not get the full moon or the,
Sun.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
doesn't
the
go
early
on
morning.
days.
I know when I had roosters, I had to throw at 4:30 in the
Oh,
morning.
yeah.
Yeah,
No need for an alarm clock.
yeah.
You know,
They can go get right around the clock. sometimes.
I'm just thinking about
It's
my
nice not fighting,
experience
too.
with
No, they won't, they get
the
taken
woman
over.
on the corner of
Then they
Plum.
do every now and then.
And I'm wondering if perhaps you were to take the lead on Susan's situation and do something similar. Go and talk with her in a pleasant way. Just say everyone is concerned. We don't want you to feel that you are being, targeted or anything. But, you know, the Constitution is the Constitution. And this is a noise complaint that causes the neighbor or neighbors to not be able to enjoy the quiet and peaceful use of the land. And, you know, just see what she says about that, because, and then, you know, maybe we can get this resolved in a more pleasant fashion. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
Susan knows the person.
Yeah, oh no, I
And you
know.
do
He
too.
knows her very well, too.
Yeah,
So-
and honestly,
Yeah,
I have basically said that after you spoke with her probably 2-3 months ago.
yeah,
Yeah, she came over ranting and raving, and I told her, I go, you don't need the roosters.
yeah.
I like them.
It'd be no different if her neighbor was a farmer and he decided to warm his tractor motor up at 3 o'clock every day and say they use that for farming.
That's right.
So if I get 2 or 3 roosters on your grandfather until you pass that thing?
Yeah,
And it's right next to your bedroom window, not too bad.
you can get yourself a chicken coop.
Okay.
Yeah, you could have some roosters.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. But see, the thing is that crow back, and they love doing that. Two roosters from
Yeah.
different places, they crow back.
See, everybody where she lives is related to her, they've been there forever, so no one's gonna write a letter that says they bother them.
Yeah.
If we went through that with the dog. But you're welcome to let her know that I'm gonna go to district court too.
Yeah,
I
I think that's, you know, until we make a suggestion to the selectmen to say that somebody within the town, that we can't do anything about it.
it's my blood pressure is not gonna last that
Yeah.
long. It's really bad.
This may be a suggestion, and I don't know, I always think of Deputy Chief Lucy, who's the chief?
Mike,
Mike
O'Reilly.
O'Reilly. Have you sat down and talked with him?
No, he threw us under the bus with the dog.
I know.
Totally.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's the tough one. That's the tough one to go in and say is, I'm ready to go to the courts to say that
I'm
this
just
is a
gonna, I've talked to
noise.
the court, I'm ready to do that, I want to see what you guys are gonna say.
Yeah. It's, the big one is, and I've been this since we've started roosters and chickens and been in chickens long enough. It is not needed. That's the whole thing. It is not needed. People can say about me, I don't need a buck because you can AI. Matt doesn't eat bulls because you can AI, but there's something different about, you can't be guaranteed all the time AI and working. You do, but it's part of the operation of the farm. This is not part of the operation.
not a
of
farm.
It's,
Doesn't fall in the phone.
It's
Yeah.
dirty and filthy.
yeah, and that gets to a point of is what's she doing with them in a how she's handling them in a
She mows over it,
right, and, well, she's mowing over where they're scratching out in the yard.
not a lot. How many chickens, 10?
There may be a dozen or 15 there now, but I know at one point
It
she
was
had
great
20.
until the roosters came.
Yeah, you'd never even know, you'd never even have any.
No, you wouldn't with the chicken.
No, no, they never get out every now and then a hawk.
Someone said when you bring the second rooster, they'll kill each other, but that didn't happen.
No,
No,
I'm surprised,
If they get
no.
No, they
loose,
won't.
mine always did, if they got with.
Sometimes they,
Over
yeah,
each
I think why they have it is they have so much area.
Very seldom they kill you.
If they're in a coop,
They'll fight.
yeah, if they're in a coop, they'll,
The first few weeks, you kept it in the house in a dog crate, you could hear it through the open window.
yeah.
Would someone like to make a suggestion so that we can, John, would you like to make a suggestion?
Suggest that we come up with 2 or 3 points what we've discussed and send it off to the selectmen for their review.
Well, what about Linda? I mean,
Linda is,
you gotta alleviate
Linda,
concerns
Yep.
somehow.
I'll talk
Tried
with,
to talk to her?
yeah, I can tell you if I go talk with her, I can almost guarantee it won't make any difference, but I'll let her know what we're
Yeah,
discussing.
officially, she ought to be
Yeah.
spoken to.
Yeah, just to let her know we've had a meeting it's not really our involvement, but we can tell you that it's a noise complaint and it could get into legal action.
Right, and maybe offer a few suggestions.
Yeah,
Offer her a place to take her?
I can honestly say, 3 or 4 years ago, I did have one guy come and take one of hers. She ended up with a rooster in a batch, and she didn't want anything to do with it because she knew she could get in trouble. So she asked me if I had somebody, and I had a kid in, I think it was Ipswich, that was slaughtering birds.
Can you
and-
suggest that too, that maybe you know someone? Because I know someone that'll take them.
Oh, yeah, I don't think MSPCA will take
They
them anymore.
probably won't.
No,
No, I think they were inundated with them.
yeah.
Yeah, they have so many, they don't know what to do.
Does anyone want to add anything to what John just said? Well, can we have a motion to approve that?
Will we approve it?
Sending off the suggestion to the selectmen.
Oh, yeah.
On
Talk-
this issue,
And talking to her.
yeah,
I think
and talk,
You know, we overheard that, we gotta talk to her.
yeah.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Motion carries. Now I have one more thought that, I don't know. Would it be helpful if 1 or 2 of us went to see the 3 people we're talking about, police, the AOC, and the Board of Health, and just explain the situation? Would that be helpful?
I think we should get it in front of the selectmen first,
Okay.
before we step, because I had mentioned, we've discussed this before with the other one with Rosie's, and even one before that, I think we had one, this is like
Yes.
the 3rd one. And I had suggested even before we started this first meeting, was get somebody from the police department here, to say, look, we've already talked about this is a noise complaint, it's in yours. We don't have the authority to do that, I don't think. Even having them come now and say, I think it's better go, we advise the selectmen what we've come up with, let them make the decision, and then yours would be to follow the agricultural commission suggested to you guys, the selectmen. It's the police, health department, their responsibility, what are you guys doing about it? Hate to pass the buck, but everybody else seems to
Well,
be
and-
passing the buck.
Well, we don't
Right,
have the authority to take care of it
Yeah.
anyway, so it's gotta be passed.
yeah,
But I do think too that, because we're making the recommendation
yeah,
to them, that's our job, is to make
Right, oh, yeah.
recommendations to them.
yeah,
That, they will have to deal with it.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
perhaps someone will decide that they're gonna have to, take the bull by the horns.
yeah.
And, all right, so I'll put something together for us for the next meeting and get it off to you guys so you can read it and see if you approve of it at the next meeting. Yeah.
Can we just, not to bypass another meeting, I think we've got what we wanna send to the selectmen now.
Mm-hmm.
Officially, can we email that to each other, okay it, and say, let's send that to the selectmen to get this as quick as possibly to them?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, you ask the question, because the last thing on my agenda was to define ourselves as an advisory board, which is what we were chosen to do. So, what I wanted to just read out loud about this definition.
Oh, no, that's the same one, okay.
You got one more?
There you go. What I wanted to do was to emphasize the definition according to the dictionary and Entrepreneur Small Business Encyclopedia, the definition of an advisory board. A group of individuals who have been selected to help advise a business owner regarding any number of business issues, including marketing, sales, financing, expansion, and so on. A body that advises the board of directors and management of a corporation, but does not have authority to vote on corporate matters. If you just take out the word corporate and put in selectmen, that pretty much explains what we do. Further, it says, an advisory board is an informal group of local business professionals who can help you run your business better. And because advisory boards are unofficial, you have a great deal of latitude in how it is set up. Advisory boards can be structured both to help with the direct operation of your company and to keep you informed on various business, legal, and financial trends that may affect you and your business. Or you may also want to have successful entrepreneurs in it. I'm going to just jump down to the bottom to say advisory boards are not compensated, blah, blah. When holding actual meetings, which is the bottom of the second page, when holding actual meetings, you can go one of two ways.
Oh, we've got a little more than we've got.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, no, that's okay, keep reading.
No back page.
okay, so there's nothing important on the back page except the last sentence,
Yeah.
which I will read to you. It says, when holding actual meetings, you can go one of two ways. You can meet with different advisors separately in a way that makes sense to the issue at hand. It really depends upon your business needs, when you're comfortable with, and the dynamics you wish to develop between your advisors. So, what I take away from this is, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, we're an advisory board. We're informal. Being informal means we do not have to follow the same Robert's rules that everyone else does. Even though we're doing it today because we're being televised. It also clearly states that we can have a one-on-one discussion with someone, and it's not in violation of an advisory board's definition. So, John, to answer your question, I believe we can, until I'm told differently by someone else, we can put something together, email it around, get everyone's input, and then write it down and make a decision if that's going to work.
Get it to the selectmen as soon as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do get right on these things like as soon as I get back. So, could we have someone make a motion to accept the Entrepreneur Small Business Encyclopedia's definition of advisory boards?
Motion to accept definition of an advisory board.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, that really is all that I had for the agenda.
Okay,
And I don't know, when you say, I don't know, since I've never done this before, whether all of us have to sign the minutes of the meeting from last week, or the week before? No, we don't have to?
Approve it, just approve it.
Just, okay, so I can let me have one that doesn't have the 14th scratched off.
No, that's good.
do you have that email you sent about the definition of the right to farm?
Yeah, I do.
You have it, Catherine?
Let's see. It should be in there, yeah.
I couldn't print
The
that.
14th isn't scratched off.
Oh, you know what? Okay, a farm is defined as an area of land which may, but not required to, qualify for 61A as put forth by Mass General Law. I didn't put it.
Right, yeah, then,
Tracts of land which do not qualify. for
okay, before that,
Yeah.
that's where I'd like to add the business license and commercial.
Okay, I got that right here.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at that.
I don't think it would say commercial, it would be agricultural. Commercial is a
No,
different
you can
zoning.
just have a
Well, I
business
mean,
license without a commercial license.
I think a commercial is different, a business is, I always think if you're running a business, it's commercial.
Well, the thing
Well, not
is,
necessarily.
No.
I think it should be called agricultural.
the town does not issue commercial.
Right, so a business
So it would
license,
have to be a business.
business license, so just a
Yeah.
business, I always think of commercial, whether I'm commercial
Sure.
fishing, I'm commercial clamming, I'm selling
Agricultural
them.
business.
Yeah,
Because the words mean a lot.
They
yeah,
do.
oh yeah, and that's where,
Say commercial, they're gonna say you gotta rezone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they don't have the power to give out a commercial license.
the other thing on that about complaints.
Yep,
I don't like the idea of putting complaints in something like that, because it almost,
encourages people to think
yeah,
that way.
yeah, to look at it, because even, we're talking not about what you're talking about, so this is about the right to farm. In our bylaws, that if you just even mention the word that somebody can complain, we're already saying that we're allowed to have odor, smell, and noise. But then if you put at the bottom of it, unless we get a complaint about it,
Right.
so it's just,
No, you don't wanna go there.
yeah,
No.
you're given not too much ammunition, but it's just one of those things in is to, if we're adding something to the right to buy, well, it's just more or less saying what a farm is,
Right.
and not to say, because anybody could have a problem with anything and just turn around. I mean, I know you haven't had it for years, but what, I don't know if it was the brewery drain or something when the traffic circle used to stink. And it's part of farming.
Yeah,
That wasn't me,
What?
that wasn't me.
Oh, it was me, it came
There's
up.
still people down there.
Yeah,
Some of the breweries, there's a lot of breweries in that
there
area.
are, they really are.
but it happens and it's allowed to happen, but then if you put in there and somebody's reading the farm, it says, okay, odors are there. But you can complain about it,
Exactly.
even though it's there, you don't wanna give them, all,
Ammunition.
yeah,
Point well taken.
yeah, on some of those, so. That's basically it, I gotta go back in.
All right, wait, we have to dismiss.
I know.
We have to have a motion to dismiss.
Let me give you one of these. What was this you think?
Alrighty.
That wording
Oh,
was
yes,
coming
thank you.
with the-
Thank you.
We had a little
Yeah.
something that
Absolutely.
yes.
about animals that do not comply.
All right. So can we have someone make a motion to dismiss?
I will make a motion to dismiss.
Second? All in favor?
I
All right.